What's up, guys? Today we're going to be doing a review of the Polaris Slingshot. Alright, so this is the Polaris Slingshot. It is a three-wheel vehicle. It's kind of like a mix between a motorcycle and a car. It only has one wheel in the back. As you can see here, it's belt driven, so it's rear wheel drive. And then we've got two wheels in the front. Now, something that's pretty interesting right off the bat here is that the front is actually really wide. It almost feels as wide as my Ford Raptor. Anyway, it's pretty wide, and it's a very interesting car. Let's talk about the exterior, the power, and the interior. So it has a pretty aggressive look. We've already looked at the way that the wheels are set up in the three-wheel configuration, but it has really sharp lines. But everything is plastic. So this is just, ABS plastic. This is probably ABS plastic that's just painted. And everything is plastic, it feels like. Obviously there's some metal. There's like a roll bar here that's metal. The wheels are metal, the suspension's metal, but all this stuff, plastic. It doesn't look like cheap plastic. It doesn't necessarily feel like cheap plastic, but it is plastic nonetheless. You see these rattling around as you're driving. These mirrors are fixed in place. There's no button inside to control the mirror. That bothers me a lot. I think you have to get a wrench right here to adjust the mirror. And for me, I'm renting this from Turo, that was a little bit annoying because this mirror right here on the side is nowhere close to, I'm 6 foot, it's nowhere close to where it should be. So I just had to really mostly turn around. And your visibility turning around looking behind you is not very good because, as you can see, the seat backs are really high. So yeah, let's talk about the power of the car. It has a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder motor. It's actually pretty good. This thing doesn't weigh very much. There's not a whole lot of heavy components on the vehicle, so you don't need a huge motor. Just similar like a motorcycle, you don't need a huge motor to have a fast vehicle. It's also paired with a 5-speed manual transmission. I gotta say, after driving this thing about 400 miles so far in the last few days, this transmission is actually really good. I've driven some sports cars that actually I feel like had worse transmissions than this. So I was really happy with the transmission. It was probably one of my favorite things about driving this vehicle. Let's talk about the interior a little bit here. These seats, they are very, very plasticky. I think they're made to be all weather, so that they can weather the elements, water and dirt, and you probably can just hose them down. I think if I had to guess, the whole interior is probably weatherproof or waterproof. The steering wheel it's very cheap feeling. It's the cheapest feeling part of the entire car. It's plastic and it's almost rubbery feeling. Like I feel like I could bend the whole steering wheel with my hand. That was one of my least favorite things about the car. It does have a stereo system. Let's see if I can get you a picture here. Yeah, you can see there's some speakers down here. Looks like a tweeter at the top. I have a Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, and it was not able to pair with this car, even when it's plugged in with the USB cable. So I wasn't very happy about that. The only music option I have in this vehicle is the radio, and well, it's not always easy to listen to the radio because you're dealing with interference and road noise at the same time. Alternatively, these awesome helmets that came included with the rental, they gave 2 helmets. They do have this Sena Bluetooth system here, and you're supposed to be able to listen to music with it inside your helmet and also talk to your co-pilot through those headsets. But both of my headsets were dead, and both of them were dead, and I charged the battery on that one for about an hour before I left on this trip, and it's completely dead still. So I don't know if they're just old and they don't work at all. I wasn't very happy about that because this is a pretty long trip. but it's okay. You know, I got the road noise and everything, and that's fine. So anyway, let's talk about some more little quirk things. There's a glove box. There's a glove box here that drops down. There's two charging ports. One is a USB charging port and one's a 12 volt. Behind the seats, there is also storage compartments. So, oops. Sorry about that. You can see there's the other helmet in here. It's pretty small. So, for me, not knowing very much about the vehicle before I rented it, I thought that I could throw my backpack. He told me there were 2 compartments behind the seats, so I thought I could put my backpack behind one compartment and my duffel bag there in the other one. And then if I needed to stop to get food or use the restroom or whatever it was I needed to do along the way, I could get out of the car and not worry about people stealing my stuff. But that's not the case. My backpack can't even fit in one of those boxes. I think that is one of the biggest flaws of this vehicle, is you're kind of tied to it on any trip you're on, unless you just don't bring very much stuff. I think they should have made the compartment a little bit bigger back here so that even a regular sized duffel bag like that right there, that Nike bag, I think there should at least be one compartment for something of that size. Anyway, minor annoyance. It does have 2 cup holders. It does have some different switches here. There's one for wet mode, I guess, inside. You've got your daylights and your regular lights, but there's not a whole lot of options. So, as I just mentioned, it is very basic, but it's really fun too because it's a very raw driving experience. You've got manual transmission, you've got a pretty decent feeling motor. It's not really fast, but it feels good. When you're on a 2-hour drive, sometimes it could get a little bit old depending on where you're going and how old you are and things like that. It's a little bit more, the experience of driving this vehicle is a little bit more athletic, it's a little bit more taxing on your body, it's a little more tiring. So if you're doing a 2-hour trip, yeah, depending on what kind of shape you're in, you might not be able to do it, or you might be really exhausted. I'm pretty young, so it was no big deal for me, and as time went by, I did get a lot more accustomed to driving it and shifting the weight of the vehicle so that there was more weight in the back going through a turn, so that it stayed planted. Because if you think about this, you've got this motor in the front, you have 2 wheels and all the suspension in the front, and then you just have the 1 wheel on the back. There's not a whole lot of weight in the back. I don't know what the weight distribution is, but it's got to be heavily favored toward the front of the vehicle. So if you don't shift your weight toward the back through a turn, you can get that thing loose real quick. Also, if you're at a stop sign taking a right-hand turn and you gas it just a little bit too much, it will peel out real fast. So, you know, that could be fun or not. Gas tank is relatively small. I don't know how small. I think it's maybe 8 gallons. If it's cold outside, make sure you're wearing a sweatshirt. If it's hot outside and sunny and you're wearing a t-shirt, make sure you wear sunscreen. And I think that's pretty much all the things I wanted to talk about. It's not unbelievably uncomfortable or anything like that. It's definitely a sports car, and it's very unique. Would I want to buy one for myself? No, it's a toy. And there's other toys I probably want to get first before I'd want to buy this. And it's fast, but it's not super fast. And it handles decently, but it doesn't handle great. So it's really for someone that likes to have a little bit of power, a little bit of handling, but you really want this unique open air experience. Like it's almost like being on a motorcycle. So I think that's pretty much the sum of everything. I would consider maybe renting one again, but I don't think I'd want to buy one. I wouldn't use it enough. Alright, I'm just going to make a little addendum video here to add some extra information and corrections to the walk-around video that you just saw. So there are 4 different Polaris Slingshots available, or I should say 4 different models with 4 different prices. So there is the S model that starts at 20 grand, there is the SL that starts at about 25, the SLR at about 29, and the Grand Touring, which is about 30. The S is a very basic model. It's not the one I drove, and it does not have a sound system or any screen of any sort, so no interface for your phone or MP3 player or whatever you want to listen to music through, or no GPS screen, nothing like that, just very basic. The SL has larger wheels, and it has a 7-inch touchscreen as well as a sound system. And then when you move up to the SLR, you get a two-tone paint job, you get a Sparco steering wheel, and better seats. And the Grand Touring is the SL model, so you get the bigger wheels again, and you get the screen, but you get a roof as well. So you're paying about $5,000 for the roof. Sorry, the SLR also has a bigger sound system and GPS, whereas the SL does not have a GPS system. It only has a screen. As I mentioned, in my experience with these units, this car, I had the SL. My experience, I could not get my Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus to work with the integrated system. Was not very happy about that. I was also using a 2016 model. I don't know if maybe they could do a firmware update to fix that or not. Anyway, let's move on. I rented the car, as I mentioned, on Turo. So here's the rental I did. It was with Jimmie W in Sacramento. He drove it straight to the airport, in the Sacramento airport. Really cool guy. It's actually, I think it was either cousins or brothers that worked together. One of them dropped the car off for me, and the other guy picked it up. It was $149 per day. They have 3 trips on it so far. Sorry, they only have 3 rated trips so far. I was one of the people that rated them. It doesn't mean that they've only done 3 total trips. I'm sure they've done a lot more than that. But I figured it'd be fun to talk about real quickly how much this, as an investment for a business idea, how does this work out? So here's a car payment calculator, and $25,000 vehicle is what these go for. The SL was $25,000 is what I was trying to say here. Interest rates are generally around 3% for someone with good credit, and on a 5-year loan, which is kind of the average, you'd be paying about $450 per month. If you're renting the car out for $150 per day, most people are going to be renting for 2 or 3 days, so you're almost breaking even right off the bat on your first rental, and everything after that is icing on the cake. If you can rent it out every weekend, you are making some decent money. And keep in mind, this kind of stuff could be novelty. Turo could disappear next year because of a lawsuit. This Slingshot could have all sorts of recalls, or people can't put it on Turo anymore, or it's not legal anymore in your state. There's a whole bunch of things that could always happen. But investment wise, if you can rent this thing out every weekend for 2 days, for Saturday and Sunday, you could make some pretty good money. So I do think it could be a really fun investment for someone that wants to have one of these just for fun as a toy, and then at the same time as an investment for a business. Okay, so let's move on from that. When I was doing the walk around, I didn't know a whole lot about the power delivery and everything about the car. I had literally just saw what it looked like and knew it was kind of fast. I think I looked at the 0 to 60 time and said, I was in a little bit of a hurry. I just said, let's do that. That looks fun. So it does have a General Motors produced 2.4 liter 4-cylinder motor that produces 173 horsepower and 166 foot-pounds of torque. Nothing too crazy, but it only weighs 1,750 pounds. So literally about half the weight of a normal car. That does make a big difference with acceleration and performance. So it does do 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. However, I think I may or may not have mentioned in my walk-around review that I don't foresee very many people getting success with that 0 to 60 of 4.8 seconds because the rear tire spins out so easily that I don't think you can get traction. You just throw down 4.8s all day long. I did want to also mention, I think I forgot to mention this in my walk around, that the fuel tank is pretty small. It's 10 gallons. I would have thought it was more like 5. I drove all the way up to Tahoe from Sacramento, which is not a very long, it's not incredibly long. I think it was like 100 to 120 miles, and I was getting close to out of fuel. When I refilled, it only cost me about $25, and that was at about $5 per gallon at a premium in a tourist area. So anyway, it is only a 10-gallon tank. That is pretty small, so keep that in mind for long road trips. At the time of doing my walk around and driving the car, I actually was under the assumption that it did not have power steering and did not have power brakes. It doesn't feel like it does to me. The way you have to fight the steering wheel to get it to turn, and the way that you really have to fight the brakes to get it to stop,
just does not inspire any confidence. And it had that old school 60s muscle car feel to it, which I actually thought was kind of fun. It didn't feel safe, but it felt fun. But I did look it up, and apparently it does have power steering and it does have power brakes. So I was wrong. My next bullet point here is that this vehicle is dangerous. It is very, very dangerous. This is an opinion of mine. You might disagree with me, but with my experience of driving this vehicle, I took off from a stoplight at a freeway entrance. And here in California, they try to break up traffic, so they have red lights to enter the freeway. So those are kind of what people really like to drive hard off of those things to get, because you can go from 0 to 60 for free without getting pulled over basically by a cop. I didn't even try super crazy hard. I wasn't just trying to burn out the tires or anything, but I literally couldn't get traction just trying to launch the car basically into the freeway. The back tire just wanted to spin out. So that was one thing. Later, I'd say probably 20 minutes later, I was on the freeway. I was probably going around 70 miles per hour, and that's pretty much what the speed limit was in that area on the freeway. But there are a lot of turns going up to Tahoe from Sacramento on the freeway. I actually at one point felt like it did feel like the back end came out from under me just on a regular bank turn on the freeway. I got pretty nervous about that. Did not feel good to me at all. And I laid off and got into the slow lane and kind of reconsidered my whole thought process on this vehicle at that point, because just to be honest with you, I'm used to going quite a bit faster than that on the freeway without even thinking about it. As I got more used to the vehicle, though, I realized that you do have to shift the weight. It's very weight sensitive. There's a whole lot of weight in the front with the motor and the suspension and the two wheels, and there's not very much weight in the back with only one wheel and only one passenger. So I did learn that I needed to shift the weight to the back wheel as I'm going through turns, and I didn't have very many problems with that kind of thing anymore. And I got a lot more used to controlling the vehicle, and it got a little bit more fun and just a little bit more involved than a typical drive in a regular car or even your typical sports car. But that took me a couple hours of driving, and I'm not an expert driver, and you might be, and maybe you think I'm being weird for complaining about this. I'm just telling you, don't expect to get in this car on your first try if you don't have a lot of driving experience or track driving experience, and just think that you're gonna have no problems with it. You may crash, and if you don't want to crash in this thing, it's one of the most dangerous things to ever crash in. You have no protection. And so those are all the things I wanted to add. I am going to be uploading another video with some footage of the drive in Tahoe. There was just a lot of beautiful scenery, and I thought it would be kind of a fun little montage to throw together of some of the GoPro footage I was able to capture from the Slingshot as I was driving, blasting through the mountain roads. Here's a little sneak peek. This is a quick clip. I have a whole bunch of videos I'm going to stitch together, and I hope you enjoyed the review, and hopefully you get a chance to rent one of these Polaris Slingshots yourself.